Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then, the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Emily Ferrier, here to bring you my favorite weird news stories that have kept me up till the wee hours of the morn. Our first story, a man in Japan saved his nail clippings for a full year to create an engagement ring. Okay, so I actually have a lot to say about this, but first, let me explain the process for those of you who haven't seen this video. So he starts off, right, by collecting his clippings. I assume that they're his clippings. I mean, they could be anyone's clippings. He has a significant amount of nail clippings, is the point, right? So he puts them into this blender and he grinds them into a powder, like this like very fine kind of powder, and then mixes that with water in a pan and like creates this little like paste mixture, right? So he then compresses the nail powder and water mixture thing, this little paste, right? He puts it into the oven for 90 minutes. I didn't see the exact temperature. You can consult that if you're going to make one of these later on. And it all comes out of this sort of like clay, this like gray Play-Doh or like over-chewed gum, I think, is more of the consistency, right? And then he puts this into a diamond-shaped mold before inserting it into a silver ring. And the ring, I know he made it himself. I'm not really sure if it was from the same substance. It sort of looked like it was. Like, it did seem to be the same clay-like consistency, but I really don't know how that's possible to make it silver. Like, he kind of buffs it out at one point, and it just goes, like, completely silver. And I just don't think that human nails can be buffed out to silver, so I might need to look further into that one. I couldn't find any information on this, but if you do, please, write in. So when that's done, so he finishes buffing the ring. He takes his little black finger diamond and puts it into the stone. And it's sort of this dull black stone, right? It's not unpleasant. I'll say that. The video itself, if you have a bad gag reflex, I wouldn't watch. It's either the most romantic thing I've ever seen, or, he's a real, like, Buffalo Bill to the nth degree. I can't really decide. So I started thinking about this idea of, like, making wedding rings out of your own body parts, right? Probably not something I should ever have thought of, but there we have it. And I wanted to see if, like, other people had done this. And I didn't find any others who'd done it with nail clippings. I think this is a revolutionary man that we have on our hands. But I did find somebody who did it with bones. This is actually a pretty old story. It's from 2006. Yeah, that's old now. That makes us, it was 14 years ago. That's kind of crazy. 2020. Wow. Anyway, so this story is from 2006. So, it's the era of, Mean Girls and lip liner and such. And it was of this goth couple who had, like, the ultimate goth wedding. The ultimate goth wedding, I suppose, would be, like, My Chemical Romance and like in a graveyard. It actually was. It was in a mausoleum. So they kind of stepped us one up there. So because they were having this goth wedding, they wanted to make every aspect of it gothic. So they started with the wedding bands, and they wanted to have like ivory wedding rings, but since those aren't very ethical, they wanted to do this in an ethical way instead of using elephant tusks, of course. It's not very gothic, to slaughter innocent animals, I suppose. So instead of using this, instead of using regular ivory, they used their own bones. What they did, right, is that they went to the dentist and they got their dentist to rip out their wisdom teeth, but, wisdom teeth, not quite enough to make these rings. So they also had them remove pieces of their jaws. I'm not condoning this at all for anyone listening, by the way. I don't think that this is a safe practice to be taking parts of your mandible to be using it on your ring. But nonetheless, it makes for a great story. So they brought these pieces of their own bones into the lab, and they dissolved the bone into some sort of chemicals. It doesn't name the chemicals, but I imagine the same ones that Breaking Bad used, because we all saw how that turned out. And then they took these chemical broken down bone cells and they fed them with nutrients to grow into bioglass wedding rings. Bioglass wedding rings apparently are a bit of a phenomenon amongst the goth community, I can only assume. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Please tell me if you have a bioglass wedding ring. So when they asked the couple about this, it was a husband and wife, so it was a man and a woman, and Harriet said, "It's intriguing to have my own bones, my own matter objectified? Okay, objectified in this way, and made into something precious and symbolic." So I think they had it made like their own bones wear their own wedding rings. I think it would have been probably more romantic to wear it the other way around. Like, wouldn't it be more romantic to be wearing your partner's bones rather than your own? I'm not entirely sure if I would want to wear my partner's bones on my ring finger. There's something quite morbid about that, which I guess is pretty beautiful if you're a gothic couple. Like, it's very Tim Burton-y, isn't it? Like, it really does. It reminds me of Corpse Bride when he, puts the wedding ring on the bone finger and all of that, except that he's putting the bone on the wedding finger in this case instead. I'm not sure where I stand on this quite yet. I'm not sure if I think it's romantic or if it's definitely ethical. I'll give them that. So you can kind of, justify, it's definitely cheaper. Well, I don't know that it is cheaper. I'm not sure that dissolving your bones into chemical matter would be, well, I guess it's cheaper than a diamond. But there is that whole argument about the ethics of diamonds and, if it's actually something that we should still be doing, or if we should be, going at, diamonds are just, we can all agree that diamonds they're not always, you can find ethical diamonds, of course, but do we need them anymore? Do we need diamonds? Do we need diamonds? Probably not. A lot of people are using gemstones these days. That seems to be more popular. But do we prefer gemstones or parts of the human anatomy? And on that matter, your own anatomy or your partner's anatomy? I'm not sure. Is anybody enjoying this, or does it make your skin crawl? Either way. Coming up, we talk a little bit more on clippings and how clipping your plants may be causing them actual pain.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
And we're back. So, before the break, of course, we were talking about beautiful, lifelong lasting jewelry being made out of your partner's nail clippings. And speaking of clippings, new research suggests that when stressed out due to their obviously difficult 9-to-5 jobs, plants emit ultrasonic squeals. Obviously, it's not during their jobs or their kids just not letting them get a good night's sleep. What it really is during drought or damage. So this team of researchers at Tel Aviv University discovered this by placing special microphones that could pick up, on sounds that the human ear can't pick up on. And they put them next to tomato and tobacco plants. And as we all know, that those are the two most important plants. Without tomatoes and tobacco, there'd be no Italian restaurants in New York. How could we go for pizza and cigars, or pasta and cigars, or BLTs and cigars? I think you're understanding that tobacco plants really only have one use. I just think, there certainly would be no more of those Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro movies. The Irishman would be probably a solid 2 hours shorter without these. But anyway, so the thing is, the study shows that during these extreme times of stress, such as when there is a drought or the plant has suffered physical damage, these sounds are produced by a plant, and various stresses also seem to cause different levels of sound produced by the plants. It would be a higher pitch maybe, or longer or shorter. There would be more frequent ones and that kind of thing. And they make distinguished sounds. You could tell the plants apart with these devices, languages. These plants had plant languages. A tree sounds different to a cactus, And these recordings, they revealed, the different rates depending on their stressor as well. So drought-stressed tomato plants emitted about 35 ultrasonic squeals per hour on average, whereas those with cut stems made about 25. So, for reference, of course, the average number of sounds emitted by these untouched plants fell below 1 per hour. So that's a very significant hike then. The tobacco plants were a little bit less. They were about 11 screams per hour for drought stress, and about 15 sounds in the same time for cut crops, because obviously the tougher ones are the tobacco plants. Good for you, tobacco. And so it was also suggested in this study that up to several meters away, certain plants and animals can hear such sounds. But obviously, we're not responding to the cries. It's kind of rude, the animals might not understand, but I feel that I guess if they don't speak the same language, maybe they wouldn't understand. They're just why are you screaming at,
in recent years, I mean, it's become abundantly clear, I think, that plants are far more sensitive, than we once gave them credit for. We know now that, they respond when they're touched by insects, when they're being crawled all over, walked all over. Still more than I can do. I still don't respond too much when I'm being walked all over. And they turn, towards sources of light, and they sniff out other plants, and some are even sensitive to anesthetics. Like, that means they must feel pain, right? If they can feel, the numbingness of pain, the numbness, preventing pain, I mean, they must be able to feel pain. And then this got me thinking, do plants have friends? Do they have family? Like, do they have hierarchical social structures? And if so, like, who's what? Who's what in the world, I feel like trees are like the high-powered Wall Street businessmen, They've got to have tough bark. That's terrible. I'm sorry about that one. About that one there. I'm really sorry about that. But I do think that's what they are. They're probably like the trees of the Wall Street men, trying to appear taller than they are, walking around, all high and mighty, while us sad little wilting violets, write poetry and get paid nothing for it. Desperately try to soak up water, get closer to the ground, Definitely the poet's violets. Orchids. What would orchids be? Probably therapists, right? Because it takes a lot to break down the spirit of an orchid, Like, you're kind of an idiot if you kill an orchid fast. Those things last for a long, long time. They're probably therapists. There to be strong for everyone else. And they seem quite poised. Orchids, I feel like they'd be very elegant. Like, I bet Nicole Kidman would probably be an orchid. What else would be in there? Carrots would be like the seedy guys that had a fight club, because they're like underground and broad-shouldered. Cactuses, cacti, whichever you prefer. I think both are correct. I'm really not sure on this one, but I think that they both apply. I think cactuses, right? The cactuses would be like those gym dudes, that like live at the gym. The one, like, I don't mean like guys that go to the gym. We, love guys that go to the gym. We need you. We need you. Who else are we gonna pretend we can't open jars for, I mean the type, like the ones that look like roided up puffer fish, that you just want to go and watch it like around the room. Return back into Screech from Saved by the Bell. Like, scurry back into the cave it's been for the past 20 years, and we can all live to fight another day. Those kinds of people. I think that's what they'd be. Michael Phelps would be like a seaweed. Not like a sushi seaweed. I mean the ones in like Lake Ontario. You know what I mean? The ones that like grab onto your ankles. Because he's very long. He's a long man. And he loves the water. I feel he'd be quite content with that. I actually don't know if the study included underwater plant life. I should check into that more. I know for sure one thing is that Pixar is going to take this and run with it, and come up with some like heart-wrenching story about a leaf that was like picked off of a tree by a young girl, and then she carried it home and made it her pet. And over time it started to brown and decay, and then one day it just shriveled up and she accidentally stepped on it and it crumbled apart. And we're all going to cry about it, and it's going to prevent us from eating salads forever. So that's great. There go all my nutrients. I think this really poses the question, though. Do plants have feelings? Are they more like animals than we once thought? And most importantly, what the hell are vegans and vegetarians going to eat now? Seriously. There is no ethical road to eating now, so thank you for that. After the break, we're going to take a hard left turn into the possibilities of the Matrix 20 years later. Hopefully featuring Keanu Reeves. He will not be here.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back. So before the break, we talked about how we are no longer allowed to eat anything guilt-free, except probably dirt. But, actually the study did mention that dirt kind of makes a bit of a gurgling noise too, but you know what? That's too much for me. I don't think I can get into us. Anyway, so now we're doing a big old left turn. I thought it would be fun to rattle everyone's brains with some reality-shattering theories. I went down a bit of a rabbit hole with this one, I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of theories, but it was very conspiracy. You know what? I'm gonna let you guys decide. The point is, I went pretty far, okay? So it has been over 20 years since The Matrix came out, okay? And scientists have been coming out with theories that seem to support The Matrix's wild theories, that, soon we won't be able to tell the difference between reality and simulated reality. And they went a step further with a few studies to suggest that perhaps we already can't. So get ready for some pretty weird theories. So it's an idea that was previously proposed, especially by Elon Musk, actually, SpaceX CEO, who maintains that there is an extremely high probability that we're currently living in a computer simulation. I don't remember The Sims being this advanced, but you know what? I'm not even mad. It's pretty impressive. If someone did create this, it's a very impressive simulation. I am curious who they think, though. Who they think would be running the simulation. Right? Like, presumably there is a human on the other side of the simulation, or maybe it is a computer, but then who created that computer? Like, there's too many layers up there for me, but anyway, we're going to continue to go with this theory. Alright, so according to Professor Ginn, there is some evidence of this theory already, okay? So these, quote-unquote glitches in the system, this professor said, deja vu, right? Such as in the Matrix movie, when the character sees a cat crossing the doorway repeatedly, maybe one glitch. But he also goes to suggest that ghosts, ESP, and other, coincidences and things like that may be other glitches, right, in this system. We'll go into that a little bit more later. So the laws of physics in our universe seem peculiarly designed with a set of constants that make us carbon-based life possible, but where are the edges, right? Where are the edges? That's what he says. So the Wall Street Journal reported that dreaming supports this theory quite a bit. Like, if we can generate a mind world for 1 to 2 hours per day during our REM sleep, then it is possible for a world to be created with data rather than matter, right? Because our brain is logging data and then creating this really realistic world. It was even speculated that in these simulations could occur other simulations, meaning that when you wake up in one, you're still in a simulation from higher up the realities chain, like in a dream within a dream, like Inception, right? The closer that we get to reality, the more realistic the world. And I have to say that my dreams are starting to feel this way, and that, they're starting to get infiltrated by technology in recent years. Technology's been around for quite a while, But I now have, this is such a sad confession, I now have phones in my dreams. Like, I'm actually, like, calling and texting. I've even used social media in them, and that sort of makes me question my whole world. Like, I've actually gotten, like, DMs on Instagram in my dreams that I'm positive happened, and then when I wake up, they aren't there. And I wonder, like, how that sort of thing can end up in your dreams. This is actually quite recent for me, the dreams being included in technology thing. Like, I've had a phone since probably like 2009, and only in the past couple of years has this started to sort of infiltrate my dreams. And I'm wondering, like, is it just my subconscious getting used to that and getting used to, like, a phone and technology and things like that in my everyday life? Or should I up the time limit on my phone? No, but I mean, it is weird. It does make you think, like, why wasn't this in my dreams before? Why am I only kind of getting used to this now, right? So strange. So I just have so many questions about this. Because with these simulation ideas, I mean, to what end? Do you know what I mean? Like, what would be the point of the computer simulation? If they're made by computers, what are they simulating for? And if they're made by humans, what are we trying to see? Like, what happens if we really polarize a political system? Like, what happens if we remove England from the EU? Like, what is it? Like, what are these simulations for? Like, what? And how will we ever know? I mean, I think it's because it was Elon Musk saying that it was a possibility. It started to freak me out a little bit. I don't think that we necessarily need to be that scared of it. But maybe me thinking that we don't need to be scared of it is part of the simulation. The second that you start to question it, they feed in the little ones and zeros to kind of make you calm down. I don't know. Would it be possible for us to feel things if we were a computer simulation? Like Sophia the robot, like Sophia the robot behaves and learns like a person. The Sophia the robot, of course, is the sort of like the robot that was created to learn like a human and evolve as a human does, take on skills. And that's it, like, rather than it being kind of like information that was implanted into her. Like, does she feel emotion? Or is she told emotion? I guess that goes into the nature and nurture argument as well. Oh my god, I could probably go into this for a very long time. This is kind of a loop that no one should really ever go into, and yet we are going into it, and we're actually going into it harder in the next segment as well. But for anyone, just to take it back for a second, for anyone questioning reality right now and like checking the back of their necks for a socket, the journal also seems to dispute the idea. That the world that we seem to experience as reality is just far too complicated to be a simulation created by ones and zeros. Like, there's just too many layers, right? Like, there's too many differences. I think, like, a computer would probably be much cleaner than the reality that we're in now. Like, it does feel like it's probably a little bit too messy. There's too much going on. And then what is the point of, like, why would there be simulations within simulations within simulations that show these different things? I don't know. I'm not like, you do feel different in a dream. But I guess you only feel different when you wake up from a dream, and then you realize that it is, in fact, a dream. So, like, if we did wake up, would we then be like, oh my God, I can't believe I ever thought that reality was real, because you've been woken up from it now, and you're like, oh my God, this is crazy. I can't believe I was convinced by that. It's a possibility, I suppose. And we're not going to get off this topic yet, because when we come back, if you weren't convinced by the Matrix, maybe the parallel universe theory is more up your alley. So more on the alternative reality rants by Emily Ferrier when we come back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Questioning everything we know about our world with the Matrix theories, I thought that we would just dive deep in to the topic of parallel universes. So I found 3 recent articles that discuss this theory. The theory, of course, being that an infinite or finite, this is still up for debate, number of realities exist simultaneously within the worlds that we know and or don't know, that are created through the process of decision making, right? So you make a decision, and then it splits you into 2 possible realities. And then those realities, you make a decision, it splits into those, and it splits into those. So that sort of theory implies that there are an infinite amount of realities, but this is still up for debate as well. Okay, so we've heard about this, right? It's been talked about. We've all talked about it a lot. This has been a theory that's not a new theory. It's been around for a while, but I think that with it being 2020, with it being like a new decade, in this sort of like 2020 just sounds like a futuristic decade that we kind of never thought we would like get to in such a, we almost didn't. And like so many major decisions are being made, obviously politically, globally, environmentally this year. You know, the Oscars are coming up. A lot of big decisions, right, is what I'm trying to say. So many of these theories, right, that I was reading about are suggesting that crossing over these realities is a possibility. Like in the Mandela effect, where if you don't know what the Mandela effect is, I have gone down so many rabbit holes with this. I highly suggest going down the rabbit holes, but if you do, watch Seinfeld for a while afterwards, just to kind of pull yourself out of that. So the Mandela effect, right, is that where some people are positive, absolutely positive that Mandela died in prison, whereas others are positive he did not, because obviously he did, like in our reality, the one that we're living in currently, the one that you're listening to this podcast in, he did not die in prison. And if that just blew your mind, honestly, it blew mine did. And if that just blew your mind, honestly, it blew my mind too. Okay? I'm not gonna lie. I kind of did question it for a bit. So, the theory goes on, right, that these 2 groups of people, the people that believe Mandela died in prison and the people that know that he did not, are actually from 2 different realities that have crossed over at some point. But physicist Sean Carroll of the California Institute of Technology said in his book, Something Deeply Hidden, that these realities, they can't interact, right? They don't influence each other in any form because crossing over is like traveling faster than the speed of light. It's not something that you can do. However, what about dreaming? Like we talked about in the Matrix segment, dreaming is such an advanced and intricate, built-up reality. What if it is actually a reality, but just not the one that we know? Okay, you often have really realistic dreams where you feel pleasure or pain, and they're like our reality, but like slightly askew. You know, it's like a different partner, different house, city, job, your nails are a different color, right? And maybe we're having a bit of like a wake-up moment, you know, in a different reality. Like maybe this is a different reality right now, and I'm dreaming in this moment, and this Emily's going to wake up and call her mom and say, I had the craziest dream. I was reading a weird story on a weird news podcast. I know, it's crazy because I'm a biochemist. Anyway, I got to get back to my 3 incredible foster dogs in my eco-friendly smart home. I like to think that alternative Emily is doing quite well for herself. Anyway, the theory, right, it doesn't explain the outrageous dreams, though, like where you can like fly, you know, and your like teeth fall out and your hands at your feet and that kind of thing. So I'm still kind of skeptical on that one, but it is a nice thought, you know, that you can have a little glimpse into these other realities and like see what's happening in the other timelines. Like I would really like to see what's happening in the darkest timeline, except that for sure this is the darkest timeline, right? I don't know. And another small note on this one. This theory could have explained the unexplainable, right? So like we talked about, we touched on it a little bit earlier on, but this could explain the paranormal. You know, things that we don't understand, Bigfoot, Nessie, ghosts, the popularity of Matthew McConaughey, a number of things that we'll just never fully understand. And I do quite like this as a paranormal theory. I quite like the idea that it's just like getting a sort of a small glitch in the fabric of the time-space continuum that separates our realities. I think that's a really, really interesting one. And I actually read a book about this a while ago, and oh gosh, I wish I could remember what it was called, and if anybody knows, please let me know, because I would like to read that book again. And the book, the premise of the book, right, was that it was a man that created a box in which he could travel to the different timelines. But he couldn't fully control what was happening in those timelines, so he would get into one, and then he would, like, go into the another one, and he would try to, like see these different potentials for his life, like, what would happen if he made this decision, and this decision, and this decision. But what kept happening is that because he made this box in other realities too, and in, like, thousands of realities, and then he, like, accidentally ended up just, like, absolutely tearing apart this time-space continuum, and the other, say his name was Joe, the other Joes ended up coming back to his reality, and then, like, he's in this reality at one point where there's, like, just thousands of Joes, you know, that were just desperately trying to get into the right reality. So I think that is the danger, right, of being able to cross over. So it's if this is in fact a reality, or if this is in fact true that there are these multiple realities and these multiple timelines, it's a good thing that we're not able to cross, because that could end up getting obviously very, very messy. I don't know if anybody is a Community fan, but they proved that for us. Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting one, but as the theory suggests, of course, like I just said, they can't make a full crossover. Or it's just a glitch in the Matrix. Who knows? I'd like to hear what you think. I would like to see, like if you could chuck us a couple of comments, maybe have a little debate. I would like to see if we support the matrix theory over the timeline theory, if we think that they could coexist, if we think that maybe this is this is a layered one. Like maybe this is this reality. We're a computer simulation. But then there's another reality where there is no such thing as a computer simulation. I guess that is that theory, right? Like, everything is a possibility, right? Well, I don't know, because if it's decision-making, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is a possibility. It just means that the possibilities stem from the decisions in which we make. But then it poses the question, how many realities affect each other's realities, and what is real? This is too much. This is a lot, isn't it? This is a lot. I think we should probably move on from the bending and changing of reality. Yeah? Do we want to do that? Do we want to let's talk about some kids stuff. Let's talk about some kids stuff when we come back. So we're going to talk about some nice children's stories, called Satanic Books for Kids. And we're going to do that when we come back from the break.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And we're back to it. So, speaking of the paranormal and everyone's deepest, darkest fears, a so-called children's book of demons aimed at readers aged 5 to 10, published by the Kawama Press, you can look that up, was written as in like an entertaining style with cartoonish illustrations to help children summon demons to, I don't know, stop kids from bullying you at school. That's all I could, like, I mean, what kind of things would a kid need to summon a demon for? You know, like, obviously, by summoning poltergeists, you could taunt your bullies for eternity. Seems like the best retaliation for bullying, doesn't it? I mean, it is the ultimate revenge, eternal damnation. So this book, right, it's just, I can't tell if it's a parody or not. I really can't. I was looking at it and looking at the pictures and stuff and reading the parts in it, and I really can't tell if it's a parody or not. It doesn't seem to be. Okay, this is a real thing, it's published, it's online, you can find it. And the book has these sigil charts that kids are encouraged to practice drawing with the colored pencils. And they're strikingly similar to those found in authentic magical books known as Gamoris, according to an exorcist expert. An exorcist expert. This is an exorcist. Okay, it's another one, another tongue twister to say 5 times fast. I wonder what it is that constitutes you as an exorcist expert. Like how many exorcisms must one perform before they are an expert? Or is an exorcist movie enough? You know? Like, is it like, or exorcist movies like the Cole's Notes of Satanic Study? You know, like it's a little bit cheating if you watch Emily Rose 30 times. So these exorcist experts, right, have been kind of dissecting this book for us. oh God, exorcists are so weird, aren't they? I mean, like, okay, so there's this theory, right, that exorcisms and possessed persons, they were just suffering from something like schizophrenia. I believe that's probably likely the most accurate. But there's another theory, okay, just the last note I'm going to say on this, that exorcism, or people that are possessed, are people bouncing between the dimensions. You know, like their mind is kind of stuck between the realities. Okay, this is like back to the books. This is like the start of a horror film. You know, because all horror films with children involved are like infinitely more terrifying, aren't they? Like if a kid sees a ghost, it's so much scarier because they just have those like casual chats, you know, like it's nothing. And like maybe they could just tune into it in a way that we can't even fathom. You know? I mean, they also eat dirt, so everything with a grain of salt. So this book, right, it's aimed at young Satanists to suppose they can just, you know, summon their demons. And the author basically states that Satanism is a normal alternative to other religions. And you know what? Maybe they're right. I mean, it's pretty far off of Buddhism. Sure, I'll give you that. But I was raised Catholic. There are a lot of chants and symbols and prayers to, you know, summon saints. I mean, I notice that, like, in a Catholic church, when you look around and everyone's doing the chants, it's a little bit eerie, isn't it? It's a little bit freaky-deaky when you see everyone, like, reciting the same words over and over again. I'm actually not saying that any religion is bad. Satanism, Catholicism, everybody do your thing, you know? Enjoy your life. Live it the way that you choose, that you believe. I'm just saying they could be a little bit similar, right? Like, I used to pray to St. Anthony to find lost things. Maybe there's a demon that helps you find your keys. You know, when you're desperate, you're desperate. Who's to judge you? Who's to judge? I'm not to judge. I'm not a demon, you know? So looking at this book, I just couldn't believe it, right? So I just wanted to see if there were other children's literature out there, and I found a website that specializes in satanic worship and shows several other examples of these books aimed at children, including a satanic children's big book of activities. Big book. Lots of activities in this. So I guess it's aimed at like the Bible school equivalent for satanic children, where they probably, it looked like from the pictures of the book where they sacrifice goats, and I'm actually not making that up. Like that was in there. A little bit scary. I kind of thought that was a myth. Anyway, so this activity, it includes like word searches, connect the dots, word scrambles, that sort of thing. And it portrays this protagonist, a Satanist child called Damien, which, if you study the literature properly, or if you watch like 30 Exorcist movies, Damien is a name for, say it with me, the devil, who's teaching his friend Annabelle, who's a creepy doll in some movies, and also a demonic name, about Satan. As well as there are characters of the misunderstood bullies and a very disgruntled looking teacher. Actually, in the book, I will say, it teaches quite nice things. Like, it teaches, like, patience and open-mindedness towards different children with different appearances and abilities. And it talks about how, like, the bullies are often afraid of things that they don't understand. And that's why they sort of lash out. And then it talks about, like, there's, like, this one kid, and he's bigger, and he's, like, got, like, slower speech and that sort of thing. And it says, like, people are scared of him because he is different, and like, really, we just need to listen to him more and stuff. And I, like, couldn't help but feeling, like, kind of emotional about it. Like, I was like, oh God, I'm so quick to judge like my initial thought was to think how bizarre and like, well, I'm putting it in weird stories. Of course, I thought it was weird that they were making satanic books for kids. But then they went and hit me with this lovely thing, you know, this lovely sort of message for open mind and open hearts for kids. And then I started to think, like, why even have the differences there? I really want to know, like, what makes the differences with Satan, and if they have such nice messages, like, why are they worship something that's like a symbol of evil? You know, I got some questions. So if you have some answers, please let me know. Really fascinating book. I also want to know what you think of teaching Satanism to children. Is it the same as any other religion? Is it the same as, should we be teaching religion to children? Is it something that we should let them find later in life? Or do you need to be introduced to sort of like maybe different religions, like growing up, and then you get to decide and pick, like when you get a little older, and you can kind of decide those things, like in the Catholic religion, you know, how you get to choose if you're confirmed or not a little bit later in life. Like, should we be doing that? Should we be giving them witchcraft books? Is it just like an opening to this religion? Is it a harmless game, or are we really playing with fire here? Something to think about. All right, when we come back, I'm going to be talking about my favorite animal versus man-made object stories. Don't worry, the animal wins, and a couple of other kind of like silly little animal stories that made me chuckle this week. So please tune in for that when we come back. And we have returned for the final set of stories for the day. So, okay, here we go. We talked a lot about some horrifying tear your skin off theories. So I just wanted to finish off with some like silly, fun stories about animals that made me laugh, okay? So we're going to get into that right now. All right, so number 5 on my list. Humans and cuttlefish both possess the ability to watch and react to 3D movies. Yeah. So to test depth perception, scientists in Minnesota, of course, made 3D glasses for a cuttlefish so that they could see if they would notice objects changing from 2D to 3D. And apparently it took a lot of coaxing to get the cuttlefish to wear their glasses. This was in an article from CNN. Like, they just want to play with it? I mean, next they're just going to be showing it like Avatar and then The Hobbit next to each other, and they have to pick their favorite, and if they pick the right one, they earn a shrimp, you know? So cute. Oh my gosh, how adorable is that? Can you imagine making the mini glasses for them? Oh man, if you could make mini 3D glasses for any animal, what would it be, and what would you show them? Would you show a dog up? Yeah. Would you, I actually will say, I still find 3D a little bit baffling. Like, it's probably pretty scary for a tiny little creature, right? Anyway. Number 4. Oh gosh, I love this one. Okay. Curiosity got the better of one cat in northwest England who broke into a prison. So the cat's called Padfoot, and he had to be rescued after stranding himself on a 25-foot high razor wire fence, some 164 feet inside the security perimeter of Havergig Prison in Malone, Cumbria. I mean, I've heard of cat burglars, but turning yourself in, that's a level of nobility I didn't expect in a cat. And I'm just going to turn this into like a part B for this one because it was like a similar vein. So cute. A 6-year-old shelter cat called Quilty is the internet's latest animal star after he kept breaking his fellow felines out of their enclosures at the shelter. So funny. So staff at the Friends for Life Animal Rescue and Adoption Organization in Houston had to wrangle the freed cats back to their own abodes on multiple occasions. And on Instagram, they have a picture of this cat being banished to the lobby room so that it could be quilty-proofed. He had to be in a little lockdown. I mean, it's just so cute, isn't it? This is a real, like, Lady and the Tramp situation. And I will never question Disney again. So cute. Oh my gosh, I just, like, imagine, like, a Prison Break situation with, like, him being like, get down, you maggots, and, like, chucking him out of it. Do. Oh, man, what a mission. I just love that. Okay, so number 3, a very angry-looking tortoise was rescued from a home in London after his grand larceny. So, what happened is that the fire that happened in this home in London happened after this tortoise knocked over a heat lamp onto his bedding, which then caught fire. And, I mean, I get it. We all make mistakes after a few drinks in the holidays, but I guess what really tickled these officers so much is that it really is the grumpiest looking tortoise I've ever seen. I don't know if there's a positive looking tortoise, but you really should check this out because holy Lord, this thing is grump. And it just got saved from the fire. It was like, I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids, you know? It really was something to behold. Number 2, several horses were spotted trotting down 37th Street near 146 Avenue Street West in New York early Saturday evening, being led by a donkey. A donkey. Oh, sorry, this is not New York. This is Calgary, my bad. That makes so much more sense. Of course, this is in Calgary, Canada, in case you don't know where that's from. So apparently the donkey was this heist leader sort of thing, like leading these. I wonder where the donkey was leading them. Like, where could you possibly have been taking all of these horses? Anyway, when asked to comment, the donkey commented, "Never assume. It makes an ass out of you and me." I'm not proud of that one. I'm really sorry about that one. That was not my best. Oh, so good. Okay. Number 1, story of the eve. A resident of Port Moody, BC. This is another Canadian one. I'm sorry, but Canadian stories, I mean, they just involve more animals, don't they? So this resident in Port Moody, BC got quite the Friday the 13th surprise when they heard their car alarm going off early in the morning. Upon investigation, they discovered a black bear had climbed into their unlocked vehicle and then locked himself inside. So this video was posted by the Port Moody police on Twitter, showing a bear pulling at the seatbelts and trying to escape. So either this was a really silly mistake or the most Canadian way to test the safety features of a car. It's family friendly, it's bear friendly, keep Smokey the Bear safe on your road trips. Like, oh my goodness, this is the most Canadian story I could ever think of. I just absolutely love the idea of, like, the bear locking himself in. You know, like, just like, I'm not coming out. I'm cozy in here, it's warm. You guys have so many McDonald's wrappers under the seat, I'm gonna eat that. Nom 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 nom. Just love that. I think that is it for my animal stories of the week. I just find them so heartwarming. If you liked the animal stories, want to keep them coming, please let me know. I will include more in the next one. But for now, thank you so much for listening to the Weird News Podcast, brought to you, of course, by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe and like write a nice review for us. That'd be really nice. If you could rate the episode, that would really help us out. It really helps us kind of bump up the ratings and get us closer to the top. So when people are searching for news, they get us. So that would mean a lot to us. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You are so welcome to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's Emily Ferrer. So search me up. Find me on social media. I'll very likely be posting some silly little anecdotal stories for you if you would like that. And thank you again for listening, and have a great night. Okay, talk to you soon.